Hi, how's everybody doing today? My name is Jonathan Lawler. I'm a senior here at Southern Miss, and I'm actually doing a presentation on Theorist models and how I would be able to apply those to a physical education setting for my future career, and really break down specifically three theorists so that I can understand how to properly manage my classroom as well. Three theorists that I have chosen to do are B.F. Skinner. His theory is mainly behaviorism, and then there's Jacob Koonin, who's an instructional management model, and then Becky Bailey's conscious discipline model. All three theorists are well renowned. They have a great background. They all have done serious study into psychological aspects of a classroom and a student's, as well as breaking down how to properly manage a classroom as a whole. B.F. Skinner is the first guy I'll talk about today. He graduated from Harvard. He received his doctorate in multiple areas. He's been awarded the Warren Medal by Society of Experimental Psychologists, as well as he was the department chair at Indiana University in 1945. B.F. Skinner, my bad. He really saw classrooms based off of certain aspects, and at that time it was probably the most popular way of teaching, and it was probably very beneficial. But my personal thoughts is lots have changed, but there are aspects of his theory that are still used today. Behaviorism is all behaviors are either reflexes produced by response to certain stimuli in the environment or a consequence of that individual's history. And that's basically saying, like, if something happens, it's how you react, it's how you respond. As well as it might be a little bit based off of a certain individual's history. If they have a history of positive behaviors or a history of negative behaviors. And that plays a factor in how a teacher responds or how a teacher handles a situation based on individual students. Another aspect of this is reinforcement and punishment. To me, those are very clear and very different ways of handling situations. With reinforcement, you'll notice that if someone's doing the right thing, you want to reinforce that action. You want them to continue to do that. And so you reinforce it. Well, that might be a prize. That might be positive words or pulling the student over to the side and saying, hey, you're doing a really good job. This is all about making a student understand that what they're doing is right. Punishment or consequence in a way, I think that's kind of self-explanatory, but with B.F. Skinner, in a time frame of when this theory was really renowned or really thought of as the theory. This was it. This was how classrooms were. But granted, keep in mind, things have changed and everything, but punishment was used as a way to decrease or minimize a negative behavior or a behavior that they didn't want, that was not, I guess you could say, perceived as being good in the classroom. Key concepts of B.F. Skinner's theory is operant conditioning. It's another broad term of saying behaviorism in a way, but it's also a way of honing in on how environments can affect one's actions. That might be another student. That might be something going on at home. You just never know what is going on in the mind of a student or a child. Then there's neutral operants, which is responses from the environment that neither increases nor decreases the probability of behavior being repeated. So it's kind of like saying it's really neutral. There's not really anything happening there, but it is happening, but it's not really affecting how a student is behaving. Reinforcers and punishers. Reinforcers are response to the environment that increases the probability of the required or the behavior from repeating. And then punishers responses from environment that decreases the likelihood of behavior being repeated. Some supporting and contradictory research that I found was J.B. Watson really believed that human behavior resulted from specific stimuli that elicited certain responses, meaning if something is happening in a child's life or at home, it's going to reflect and it's going to carry over into the classroom as well. So they're all correlated in a way in how a student thinks or how a student acts. It all relates. It all coexists. Some contradicting information is cognitism. It's basically, just to break it down, is behaviorism is all about the reaction to stimuli, and cognitism is like the mental processing of behavior. So it's like literally a student or anyone in that matter breaking down what is happening and mentally processing everything, then reacting. So it's not like they're overreacting. It's actually they're taking time to understand a situation and then responding appropriately to the situation. Teacher's role is to design an environment, establish criteria to judge behaviors, and giving feedback. A lot of this theory comes down to how the teacher wishes to handle the classroom, how they wish to handle the classroom beforehand, and how they break down things for students when it comes to feedback. Students' role is to follow instructions, perform tasks when and described, and act according to reinforcers. So if a teacher wishes to see the same behavior continue, it's on the student to actually continue, I guess you could say in a way. When it comes to designing an environment, that's really something that really stuck out to me when it came to the teacher's role, mainly because that's in a way, a lot of that can be handled with the standards and the rules that are created by the school system or the school district, and that kind of can help a teacher in a way, establishing rules and establishing, I guess you could say, standards for what they expect to happen in the classroom. So it really can benefit a teacher as well, because it can happen in more than just in the classroom. It can be something that students are used to throughout the school. For applying this to physical education, I see a lot of the concepts that B.F. Skinner used as a last resort, especially when it comes to punishers or punishment. I think that's something that can be prevented well before you have to punish a student. I think that's literally just a last resort. As a teacher, you are in control of your classroom. You are the one that makes the decisions on everyday occurrences in the classroom. So there's many opportunities as a teacher to be proactive in preventing things from happening. As a teacher, in this concept, I think a lot of it really just comes down to is a teacher being consciously aware of what's going on. And with that being said, when applying this concept to my personal theory, I mean, I see it as a last resort, but you always have to have something like B.F. Skinner's thoughts and his theories in the back of your mind as something that you want to prevent, and you want to do everything you can to not get to that point, but you have to be prepared in a way to handle situations when you get there. Some advantages, disadvantages, being aware to control your behavior. Basically what I just said in a little bit of a way. Being consciously aware of actions. It's basically being, they work in a similar way, but one is controlling, and one of them is understanding what you're doing in a conscious way. To understand you can do it, but why do you do it? Some disadvantages, does not always work. Individuals can be pretended. So in a way, if you stop a student from doing something, they're only doing it because they know it's wrong. That doesn't mean, or they're doing something that is right, and they're just doing it because they know that they'll just get something out of it. So they're kind of just manipulating the system. On to the next theorist is Jacob Koonin. He has a doctorate from Iowa State. He even wrote a book called Discipline and Group Management in Classrooms in 1970. As well as Koonin's management strategy promoted active learning, not only in the classroom or in a regular educational setting, but outside of it as well, in the real world, in businesses. It's really used to, I guess, to promote appropriate behavior based off instructions. And it can prevent a lot of things. So it's very a preventative and proactive way of teaching. Instructional management is teacher-centered and preventive-based. Just like basically what I said, it insists that teachers' ability to manage groups and lessons is important. There's 3 factors that basically break down this theory, and it's teachers' behavior, movement management, and group focus. They all work together in a productive way, and it leads to proper management of the classroom. Key concepts to remember are ripple effect, when a teacher corrects the misbehavior of one individual student and positively influences behavior of a nearby student. This one, I'll get to the rest here in a moment, but this one really stuck out to me a lot more because I have personally, from my own personal experience, I can see how this really affects a student. The ripple effect when is basically, let's say a student is behaving in the wrong way or does something or gets instructions mixed up. A teacher can handle it the right way by simply just correcting the student and leaving it as it be. But it also might help a nearby student in a way when it comes to instructions, and that makes them stop and correct themselves before it happens, or makes them make a mental note that when they get to a certain section in the instructions or in the class activity, that they make sure they do it the way that they just heard from the teacher talking to another student. Withitness is the proverbial eyes back in the head. Guessly means a teacher is always watching. The teacher needs to be consciously aware of what's always happening. Overlapping is when a teacher does 2 or more things at the same time, separates his attention over different things. Basically, you can relate this to multitasking. Momentum and flow of the lesson. So, as a teacher, you have to understand what's working and what's not, and if everything's rolling, everybody's understanding where everything's going, you gotta roll with it. You gotta roll with it. And you gotta be positive, especially in a physical education setting, with normally more students than normal, and with time that is sometimes limited. You don't feel like you have enough time to do everything. Excuse me, I didn't mean to skip the slide. Smoothness is maintaining direction in the lesson and not being diverted by irrelevant incidents. So that means staying on task in a way. And group alerting is engaging the attention of the whole class while individuals are responding. So this might be demonstrations that are being made. If a certain student might understand one thing better than another, it allows students to step up and demonstrate activities for the classroom and engages attention. It keeps people on the same page. Some supporting and contradictory research is for supporting is can eliminate disciplinary problems. So it's very proactive, very preventative. It's something I can see myself definitely using in the long run because as a teacher, it is your classroom. Like, you can prevent things from happening well in advance of them happening. Some contradictory is you have to be very thorough in your instructions. If you're not thorough, then it's all going to pretty much fall apart. And a lot of that falls on the teacher to kind of, takes away from students being misled or students getting in trouble, because as a teacher, you have to be aware of if you're making a mistake as well. Teacher's role, correcting unwanted behavior as soon as it happens. So that's being very proactive so it doesn't continue. Having the ability to maintain groups and lessons, manage groups and lessons, and multitasking. Students' roles, follow instructions, pay attention, apply themselves to the tasks that are given. So that's mainly, as a student, the instructions should guide you in the right way you go. If the teacher, and if me as a teacher, properly guides my students, all my students should have to do is apply themselves, give appropriate energy, apply themselves with everything they got, and just do everything that is required of them, and giving appropriate effort. And that should be especially for younger students, younger age students. That should be the point. Students, teachers' instructions shouldn't mislead them. How I would like to apply this to a physical education setting is creating routines and create understanding with students of what to expect, how they would enter a classroom, how they would exit the classroom. It all can be used in this very similar way. And in a way, it provides students with a reassurance that what they are doing in the classroom, or what they expect in the classroom, can provide them with some stability. Like, they can go to class knowing what to expect. And that might be more than they might have at home and or in other aspects of their life. And that can mean a lot to them. And as a teacher or as a physical education teacher, it can mean more than we could ever understand or ever believe. Some advantages is definitely the ripple effect. It's something that I like the most out of this theory, because it's just something I can really relate to. Me as a student growing up, I can definitely remember myself being a benefactor of ripple effect. Stumps unwanted actions. It's a great concept. Disadvantages, it puts a lot of things out in public, and a lot of it depends on how the teacher handles it, not necessarily the student. But sometimes it's better to handle things in a private setting, not necessarily a public, because it could make a student feel embarrassed, and you do not want that. And there's not a lot of build on relationships. And as a physical education teacher, you have opportunities to do that. You have opportunities to build relationships with your students. And I personally, that's what I want. Like, I might be teaching physical education, but I love to coach. And teaching and coaching is the same thing. They might be in different settings, different concepts, but teaching and coaching is the same thing. And in both of those things, you're building relationships. And as a future educator, as a future coach, that's something I want to do. I want to hear about how my students' weekends went. I want to hear about what my students are doing with their lives. And later on, after they graduate and after I'm not able to teach them anymore, I want to know how they are doing. And I feel like this theory just doesn't quite cover that in the way that I would like it to be. Becky Bailey, probably my favorite lady. She is a Florida State graduate. I can't really say much about that. I'm not much of a Florida State fan, but she's been very influential to me. And just by doing this research, I've taken a lot of what she's taught and what she believes, and really see myself as applying this in the future. And one thing that really stood out to me about something that she stated, and that really sums up her philosophy as a whole, is do what we say, not what we do. You want to get away from that. We want to shift away from do what we say, not what we do. And we want to shift towards be this change we want to see in the world. So if you want to change to happen, you got to start the change. And that's something that I just really enjoyed about the research I got from Becky Bailey. Conscious discipline is her theory. Is a comprehensive classroom management program and a social emotional curriculum. So it really gets to building relationships with students in an organized way, and creating like a family within the school. Some key concepts to remember. These are different, but they can be very within the same realm of a classroom. The 7 powers of self-control. So this is focusing on how a student controls themselves, and as its perception of how they perceive themselves, unity within the classroom, love, attention, acceptance, free will, and intention. That really focuses on how a student and how a teacher controls themselves, or how anyone, for that matter, feels within the classroom. And then there's the 7 basic skills of discipline: composure, encouragement, assertiveness, choices, positive intent, empathy, and consequences. All of those lead to how a classroom needs to be handled and how a classroom is done. The consequences part, it's never anything that anybody ever wants to do. No one likes the consequences. No one wants to be the bad guy. But it always has to be something in there. But as I get into later on about using these 3 concepts in my theory, I'll break down how I like to do things and how in the future I like to do things. Some supporting contradictory research. Students exposed to the conscious discipline, and this is just supporting, programs showed improvements in behavior, improvements in the areas that decrease hyperactivity, aggression, and conduct problems. So it shows that the conscious discipline model can really hone in on those problems that affect students emotionally and how they react to things. In contradicting, assign lists is and how students can manipulate the system or the way things are done is that they can just act the way they are, act a certain way just around certain people to just avoid confrontation. So it's just kind of like they're not really understanding or not really breaking down or applying what this model truly tries to do. They just kind of go through the motions. They try to just do what they have to do at this certain time, so they don't have to get in trouble. So it's not really they're learning anything or they're not applying anything. They're just doing it just because they know that's how they have to act around certain people or at certain times. It's not really applying that into their life. Teacher-student roles. Teachers, and this is really breaks into why I like this one so much, is it cares for students by getting to know them. You're getting to know who a student is, and that should be the most important thing. We can teach all day long. We can apply different things, but if you're able to build those relationships with students, the rest of it just comes easy. It comes naturally. If students want to learn, they got to be willing to know that there's someone there that wants to be there for them, and the rest will just come. It'll just come naturally. Students' roles will be able to connect themselves, determining what is acceptable and what is not. So they're able to, this really gets into the conscious side of the conscious discipline model, is they are able to, in their minds, understand what is right and wrong and actually be able to stop themselves from doing something or encourage themselves to do something that's positive. The next slide is how I would like to apply this in a physical education setting. As a physical educator, you are placed in unique positions of getting to know your students. I mean, that's just the truth. Students look at physical educators, or in most cases, physical educators are coaches of some sport at their school. They're able to get to know them. They're able to get to really understand how students are and who they are. And actually get to hear about what's going on in their lives and everything. It's really beneficial for both parties, students and teachers. With that being said, conscious discipline allows physical education classes to be able more than just getting work done. In physical education, you're trying to influence behaviors outside of the classrooms as well as inside of them. Whether that's, for example, being physically healthy in a way. Advantages, allows teachers to draw from themselves to be more proactive than reactive. So you're being very preventative. You might be able to build, because of the relationships you build, you're able to pull students aside and get to understand what is going on in their lives, because why they are acting a certain way, and then talk to them about it, help them feel supported by their teachers. Teachers are able to stay in control of themselves and positively influence their students. Disadvantages, extended amount of time to provide instructions. So it kind of cuts into the amount of time students are actually doing the activities for that day. There's a lot more time needed for instructions. This is probably an aspect that no one likes to admit or no one likes to talk about, is students just taking advantage of someone's kindness, and that might be manipulating. I mean, we never want to talk about students in that way, and I personally think that that's a way that comes down to a relationship that a student might have with the student. But you still have to be aware of what is going on in the classroom. My personal reactions sums up the three theories that I was able to break down. The three theories worked out during this time frame that created very useful, but they're kind of outdated in some aspects. There's some concepts within the three theories that wouldn't be used today, or they have been changed. Each theory is structured in a way that would not work for all students, so that mainly focuses on not all students are the same. And over the years, that's become more of a trend. You have to be aware that not all students are going to do the same thing. They're not going to react the same way. They're not going to act the same way. So you can't all put them in the same box and expect them to do what you want or do what they are needed to do. And as I stated, Doctor's theory is something I really can agree with. It's really student-centered, and that's honestly how it should be, in my personal opinion. Now, I was able to break down these 3 theories into something that my own personal theory, I guess you could say. I don't really have a name for it. I guess it's something that I just plan on building off of in my own classroom in the future. And there's 3 parts to it. It's really building relationships. I think that's where it always should start. I think you need to create understanding in the classroom, and then I think you need to be an informative instruction. There needs to be informative instructions within the classroom. When it comes to building relationships, it's more than just positive relationships. I'll go into more detail here in a second. Enjoyable, lasting experience, and students having someone who will listen to them. So you start by setting the tone. Whether it's your first day ever at the school, you need to be someone that they look at as someone who's going to be positive, and you have to do that every day. You have to be the positive person in the classroom. And as a teacher, that's what you should want. That's what you should want to do every day, because those students are going to come every day, and they're going to build them. They're going to react, or they're going to act the way that you are. If you are down in the dumps, they're not going to be high energy. They're going to be down too. It's just how students are. You want to create an environment that's enjoyable. You want them to be able to apply this as something positive. If they're a great runner, you got to be able to create activities that makes them enjoy running, and that's something they can apply to their lives outside of the classroom, and that's very beneficial to them. Students having someone to listen to them. So I've spoken on it throughout this course. I want to be there to help my students understand what's going on in their lives and be able to help them through those problems or through those good times, and just hear about it. It's pretty awesome. I want to create understanding, and let's basically focus on how the benefits of being physically healthy, and how that can apply to their lives, not just now, but in the future, in the foreseeable future. And having a teacher that will help them, that might be that's breaking down into the concept of if a student's not understanding a task, if they're not understanding what they need to do or how to do it properly. A student, and as a teacher, I want to be there for that. I want to be able to properly correct my students in a way that leads them to be successful. And how then apply themselves to the work. If a student understands the instructions or a student doesn't understand the instructions, that's not necessarily the point. The point is that they apply themselves and give their best effort. And when it comes to the instructions, if they understand them or they don't, as a teacher, that's what I'm there for. And I am looking forward to that part, because that's where it builds those relationships, it builds those bonds with the students even stronger, and it makes it even that much enjoyable for the students and for the teachers and for me. Informative, and I want to have informative instructions. This is the last part of my theory, or my take on everything I've talked about so far. But and this mainly builds a lot off of Jacob Coonan, just because his is a instructional model, and thorough instructions which prevent confusion. That focuses on, if I give a task or I write something on the board or give any instructions to my students, it needs to make sense in their minds, so they don't want to be in confusion. And if sometimes you might have to literally walk or demonstrate a lot for it to take. So that might be classroom routines, exit, enter the classroom, before students can understand. It's not about what's easy for the instructor, it's about what is best for the students. So if you have to apply yourselves a little bit more for students to understand, then that's what you're going to have to do. And as a teacher, you should look forward to that. And I know I will. Organized classroom settings. So you want to make sure that your students understand when they come to the classroom, everything needs to be organized. Everything needs to be done in a certain way. And they need to also understand why that is. And it might take a while, or it might take constant, applying those thoughts or applying the purpose to things. But I guarantee you students will understand, and they'll be able to apply that to their own lives later on as well. Students knowing what to expect in your classroom, this can create some stability in their minds, and it creates the understanding that students will always know what to expect. And that's very comforting in a way for students if something negative is going on in their life. And you should always want to do that. You are there to build the relationships and be a rock of stability for them. As someone that they can always come to and talk to. And also that will influence them to go and talk to more people if they ever have more problems. Whether it's a school counselor, whether it's a principal, whether it's another student. It makes them feel comfortable in a classroom or in a school. And that is the purpose of it all. We can focus on academics, we can focus on test scores, but we're there for the students. And we can never forget that everything we do is for them. That's basically the gist of my personal theory. I've enjoyed this presentation. I've enjoyed my research that I've done. I have a post-test that I can post. I plan to post as well. I encourage you to take it, do a pre-test of it, and then also a post-test of it, and see what you learned throughout the process after going through this video, and see what you learned. See what you learned differently about something, and maybe you can apply it to being a teacher, not necessarily physical education, but maybe an English teacher. You never know. And I encourage you to do that. Here's some references and different things that I was able to take a lot of my information off of and learn from. I just want to say thank y'all for everything that taking time to really listen to this presentation. And thank y'all so much, and I hope y'all have a great day.